Accept everything just the way it is. Do not seek pleasure for its own sake. Do not, under any circumstances, depend on partial feelings. Think lightly of yourself and deeply of the world. You must understand there is more than one way to the top of the mountain. If you wish to control others, you must first control yourself. Hello, friends and grasshoppers. This is episode 67 of the Formless Podcast with me, Dustin, and joined here today with me is my beautiful bride, Brighten. Good morning.
Good morning.
So, that was a little quote, or a few quotes by Miyamoto Musashi.
I'm not familiar with who that is.
Good. Miyamoto Musashi was a 14th or 15th century samurai who fought 60-something duels in one-on-one combat. Single combat. Real guy. He's kind of become this mythological figure in Japanese history. And he... just crazy. He wrote the book of Five Rings, which is a famous martial arts book that's studied in business and politics and in like schools of philosophy and just pretty crazy stuff.
I feel like I've heard of that.
Yeah.
I've not read it.
You've heard it because I've quoted him before in the podcast. We talked about the Book of Five Rings, and I just kind of went back to it, and it's just fun stuff. And today in class, we did a little bit of a mat chat and talked about him and the different things. And he, the history there is super rich and fascinating character. At the end of his life, he decided to write this book on strategy, the Book of Five Rings, and he left the city and just kind of went up into the hills literally into a cave and painted and wrote this book. He did all sorts of stuff. He was an artist. He carved like sculpture. He painted, did calligraphy. Just pretty crazy. Cool. Pretty crazy thing.
Very cool. I wasn't familiar with who he was until I saw you post something on, I think maybe it was Instagram story.
Yeah.
Okay. So Can you explain that quote a little bit? Because I was kind of like, why do you want to control others?
So we talk about it in self-defense martial arts classes.
Oh, okay.
So if you are trying to defend yourself from somebody trying to hurt you, you are trying to control their actions ultimately.
Okay, that makes more sense.
They are wanting to do something to you, and you are trying to make them stop for all intents and purposes. Okay. But
now that quote makes much more sense to me.
But for you to be able to do that, you have to first control yourself. You have to be in control of your own actions, your own emotions, your reactions, all of that stuff. You need to be in control of.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And we talk about that like when we're teaching, especially with the younger kids, and when you're teaching and you get to talking a little bit too much, and they have a little bit more energy, and they've just been running around the class for the last 45 minutes, half hour, and you try and calm them down. And I always try to start on a low energy. Bring it up to high energy. Sure,
because it's so much harder to get them down once they're up.
And then bring it down before I let them go. And one of the games we play, we call it, this has got many names, the statue game, normal face, just all sorts of stuff like that. And we have them stand in a line, and they take a deep breath. They get all their wiggles out, scratch their face or whatever, fix their hair, and then they stay still like a statue. And the only two things they're allowed to do is blink or breathe. And then we go around the room making faces at the kids, or like the rubber chicken, squeezing the rubber chicken so it squeaks, and trying to make them laugh or react in some way And then if they move or they laugh or whatever, have them sit down. And then the goal is to be the last one standing.
Right.
And it's lots of fun. There are some kids that can just
I was going to say, some kids are very good at that.
Yeah, and then others just, they can't do it.
No, I get it. Yeah. I would be amongst that group.
It's a good exercise for self-control and like turning that off, turning that.
Yeah, it is.
That desire to move or to be just goofy or whatever, and I try and keep it fun and high energy for the class. It's a lot of fun. I really enjoy doing that, but that exercise is great for practicing patience and self-control and emotional control.
No wonder I'm not good at this game.
Yeah. Why is that?
I don't know. I don't have the foggiest idea.
No?
Yeah. I've done it all of one time in adult class, and
really?
I'm pretty sure I was like one of the first people out. I couldn't knock off. It's just so funny to me. Yeah.
Do you care to elaborate or no?
No, I think I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Yeah, so that's just one of the things that some of the stuff we do there, and it comes back to that quote about being able to control others. You have to control yourself first.
That makes a lot more sense now.
And it's a lot of fun to do that and to goof around and play with that a little bit, and it's good times. It's good times, especially what I find it really good on. It's a good release after you've been drilling and working on the fundamental stuff. And, especially the kids that have been there for a long time, they kind of get jaded to the fact that we're just doing the same stuff, like, again.
I understand that.
And to, like, reiterate to them that, like, it's so important to know those fundamentals and those foundational things that others call the basics. I occasionally refer to them as the basics, but that word is so, in my opinion, inaccurate, because those fundamentals are so important. If you don't have a good foundation, you have nothing to build on. And that's such a good analogy for life, or for skills in life. When you're trying to do something new, the more solid your foundational skills are, the more solid those things are, the easier it is to build onto them and to get better.
Absolutely. Yeah. We wrote a paper about that last term.
Oh, really?
One of my professors was a big, I wouldn't say a big sports guy, but I know he coaches at Shasta College, and that was one of the discussion posts or papers we wrote about, like the fundamentals, how important it is to go back to the basics of different things.
Oh, really?
To build upon it.
What does he coach?
I believe girls volleyball.
Girls volleyball.
Yeah, Shasta College. I believe so. Yeah.
There. That way I don't have to keep turning my head so much.
Yeah, there's also a bird flying outside that I keep seeing.
Is that what's distracting you? That's why I keep looking. Because you keep looking out the window.
I know, and I noticed that you were looking at me looking out the window.
Yeah.
So I thought I'd better describe why I was looking out the window. I'm also always watching out for a child to come in.
So we're in the garage again this week, and it's hot again. But there's lots of distractions out here, and that's one of the reasons why we don't normally record in the garage. But the school's air conditioner is down, and so if we're going to sweat and melt, we might as well
melt at home.
Melt at home, yeah.
We can do that here. Yeah.
But so anyway, back to your teacher.
Yeah.
He coached girls volleyball. Is that right?
I believe he coaches girls volleyball at Shasta College. I believe I have that correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm trying not to mess with the microphone, but my stand was a little bit loose.
Every time you mess with it, I think about messing with it, but
don't.
But that was like the first thing that we discussed last time when I was on the podcast, and it was my first time with this new stuff, and you were like, "Don't touch the microphone."
Yeah.
So I'm like really trying hard to not touch it.
Oh, excuse me. So back to your teacher. He was talking about fundamentals and basics.
Yeah, it was last term, so I can't completely remember.
It's gone.
What it was, why we were talking about it, but it was talking about going back to the fundamentals and why that's important, why we continue to do certain things, and like how important that is, because you can't build on something if you don't know the basics. Mm-hmm. I think that was the gist of it.
Well, and you know, in life, like, what do you do when you get lost or when you get when you're struggling? It's like you go back to those things that you know how to do.
Right, that makes sense.
Like you go back to the things that you've done before and that you know how to do. And sometimes that helps you get through that complicated thing that you're dealing with, that problem.
Absolutely. And it also brings back like some form of familiarity. Uh-huh. So then you can kind of like, if you're not calm, you can sort of calm yourself back down, I think.
Yeah. The in the martial arts side of things there, mm-hmm. like when we're teaching something new and the kids or the student isn't quite getting it, mm-hmm. we usually take a step back and go back to a fundamental technique that's related to the more advanced technique that we're learning.
That makes sense.
And make sure that we have that down.
Yeah.
Before we
and a lot of times you don't, and that's why.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the cool thing is sometimes once you fix the foundational issue,
yes,
you progress much more rapidly.
Right. Because you probably got hung up on something basic, and mm-hmm. if you go back, I totally agree with that, and I've experienced that myself a little bit.
Oh, really?
In our niece, I would say definitely I've experienced that.
And in our niece, you have to have those foundational skills. Like
I would say, yeah.
Well, no, because you practice them continuously. Like when you test, it's cumulative. You do the first test over again. Yes. And then you do the second test. And then when you get to the third test, you do the first and second test over again. And then you do the third test.
Right.
And so on and so forth. So that's one way of like hammering home those foundational skills.
That's true.
Because you have to keep practicing them. You don't just move on. And a lot of, especially beginner students, they do the foundational thing and then they move on to the next and they're done with that foundation.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, I'm good. I got that. And they don't realize that everything's built off of that first set of stuff that you learn.
Yeah.
And you have to, you're constantly like going back to that and refining that and making it better.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. I was having the boys help me. I'm trying to learn the gates right now. Uh-huh. And so that kind of reminded me of some of that, like the different like gates that you have to go through, and then like the warrior and I think it's the dragon. Mm-hmm. That kind of reminds me of that.
Yeah, Tyler and I talked a little bit about that a couple episodes back.
Oh, good. I should listen to it.
Do you want to go through them?
Oh, right now on the spot. Okay.
Do you remember the first one?
Boy.
So the gates are like our process of learning.
Yeah.
And there's 4 of them.
Right. Are we allowed to talk about them on here, or is that like super secret stuff?
It's not super secret stuff.
Okay, we're allowed to talk about it. Okay, I think it's blindness.
You think?
No, it's blindness.
Okay, so blindness is the first learning gate. So if you think about it in a concept of learning a new skill, like let's pretend you don't know how to swim. And you're going to learn how to swim. So you jump in the water and you're blind to the ability to swim. And then as you start to learn how to like doggy paddle, you come to the gate of duality. Okay. And the duality is like you have some of the skills to swim, but you don't have all of the skills to swim. So you can kind of do it as long as you stay in the shallow end where you can put your feet down, right? And then, do you remember the next one?
Oneness.
Oneness. So at oneness, you're a competent swimmer. You can swim, not like at an Olympic level or something like that, but you can swim. You're confident. And the last one.
Oh, hold on. Don't tell me emptiness.
Emptiness is where it just happens. Like you don't even have to think about it. I could throw you in a pool and you just start swimming. I like to think of it as walking and chewing gum at the same time. It just happens. You don't have to like consciously put the effort into putting one foot in front of the other and also chewing your bubble gum. It just happens. Or another way of saying it is just breathing. Breathing is automatic to everyone. If you had to consciously think about every breath you
You'd be
took,
in trouble.
We'd all die.
I'd be in trouble.
Yeah, people would just be dropping like flies.
Right.
But it's just a state of being. You just go, and to get deeper into it, like the dragon is the thing that prevents you from getting past that gate. The thing that would hold you back from learning.
That's what reminded me of it.
And then the warrior is the thing that you need to do to get through that gate.
Right.
Yeah, we won't go into all of that.
Oh,
but,
good. I'm not sure I remember all of them.
No sweat.
I was like, oh, here we go.
No sweat.
Test time.
But those are those. I like to think of it as music.
Really?
So like to be a jazz musician, right? Jazz musicians improvise. There's like a set of written music, and you have to know the written music, and that's like your roadmap, right? That's the thing that if you go too far out into the improvisation, you have something to come back to.
Okay, that makes sense. What a good analogy.
Okay.
Yeah.
But in order for you to improvise and do it well, you have to know the theory, music theory.
Sure.
Okay. So you have to know the notes, and you have to know the notes in relation to the other notes, where they are on the scale. And you have to know the keys, and you have to know all the rhythms and the tempos and all of that stuff for you to improvise really well.
You have to know the basics.
You have to know those fundamentals. Foundational things. Now, the one thing with music is theory. It's not fact.
Okay.
Right? Theory is just an idea, essentially.
Okay. Yeah.
And this is one of the other things that I like about martial arts and music, because everything is theory until you put it into practice.
Okay.
Right?
That makes sense.
I can sit here and talk about different techniques or moves or whatever, but if I've never applied those or never tested them,
sure,
in sparring or in a self-defense situation or in action, if I've never put them into action, they're just a theory.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Now, with music, you're fairly safe, right? If you put a theory into practice and you try and improvise and you blow it, the worst thing that can happen is people don't like the music.
I guess that's true. I was like, if you're doing a concert, that might be a little hard.
You might get a little booed or whatever.
You might get booed, but I guess that's the worst that could happen. So yeah, you're right.
That hurts the ego. In martial arts, if you apply a theory and you're putting it into, you're testing it, you're doing what we call a pressure test. Like, we're going to spar, and I'm going to try this theory out, and I want you to give me feedback. I want you to see, and I just want you to spar. And if my theory works, I will be successful. I will accomplish this thing. If it doesn't work, you're going to thump me. Right?
Yeah.
So that could be painful, depending on who my partner is or how they are, or how bad I screw this up, right?
Yeah, or your lack of communication.
Exactly. There's all sorts of factors at play. But that theory, just like music, until you put it into actual play, until you test it, it's just a theory, right?
Right.
Okay.
I'm with you.
So it's good
It
times.
could be a little more painful in martial arts than in music. The worst thing that happens is you get booed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you bruise your ego or you
Yeah.
bruise your face.
Yeah.
Right?
You choose. I'm not sure which is more painful sometimes.
Well, really?
Those ego blows can hurt too.
Those ego blows can hurt.
I thought you were going to get mad at me a second ago because I accidentally touched the microphone. And you immediately looked at me and I was like, I didn't do it.
No, something's rattling, and I was trying to figure out what it was.
I think what it is the table is not even. So every time we move our arms, it kind of
rattles.
So I'm trying really hard not to move.
Okay.
Very much.
All right. Interesting. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious on another tangent here, but still kind of related to what we're talking about. In school, you're in the depths of school right now, and sometimes it's a little stressful.
Yes, it is.
And what are some of those foundational things that you are learning right now? Do you have them? Can you talk about them first?
What are some of the foundational things, like how I manage stress related to school?
No. I'm just talking about in the topic of the classes that you are taking.
Okay.
Are there some foundational things that you're learning that you're like, ooh, this is important, or ooh, we keep coming back to this thing?
Yes, I would say I'm learning a lot about personality traits, and I keep forgetting that those can apply. So I keep coming back to that. And remembering that, and then just remembering me specifically when I'm doing research, I'm maybe overzealous. I'll research a bunch of stuff, and then I have to narrow down all of this research. So I think what I learned earlier on, and what I have to keep remembering, is that I need to not... I need to research one thing at a time, read that, take what I can from that, apply it, and then go on to I get really excited with research, so I'll just research a bunch of stuff and print out a bunch of things and read all this stuff, and then I have to try to narrow that down and summarize it, and I'm like, wow, I probably didn't need to research quite that much. Could have done with a few less articles to summarize. That's definitely my biggest thing, is remembering that I need to condense I'm very bad at summarizing. I feel like I just end up writing the whole thing because I don't want to I want to miss anything. So I think the basics for me is going back to basic English and just remembering how to summarize stuff. That a summary isn't all of the information you learned. It's a piece of the information you learned. Does that make sense?
Yeah. But is that a foundational thing?
It is to me, because...
Is in regards to your schoolwork?
In regards to schoolwork, because we learn how to summarize in elementary school, right? Or I've done that with the kids already, learning how to summarize things. Yet here I am as a college student forgetting that a summary doesn't mean that I'm including every single thing that I read and reverberating it back to you. I'm condensing it. I'm summarizing it.
Giving you the gist of it.
Yeah.
So,
exactly.
So what about in psychology itself? As a topic, do you think that you're still in the midst of figuring out what those fundamental things are?
I think I probably am.
Okay.
And I'm also probably in the midst of figuring out which one's going to work for me. Today I was researching and we went back to cognitive behavioral therapy. And I was like, oh, I forgot that there's all these different forms of therapy that, can apply. Or we went back to family therapy, learning about how would a family therapist approach this situation versus a cognitive behavioral therapist approach. So that's what would the differences be?
Interesting.
So that maybe I am still kind of working on learning those fundamentals. I would say I am still working on learning them.
But that's not a knock. Please don't take it that way.
Not at all.
Because I think no matter what skill or profession you are learning, you still have to do those foundational things. You can be a master carpenter,
Right.
But you still need to know how to read a tape measure. You still need to know how to hammer nails.
Yep.
You still need to know how to make things level and straight and true.
Yeah.
And those are all foundational things, foundational skills that you would learn to become a carpenter.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's not like, oh, once I learn that, I'm just going to forget these things.
I hope not.
You know, well, you can't.
Yeah.
Like
we'll be in trouble.
A carpenter, for instance, once you learn how to like actually hammer a nail and use those tools, you can't just like go, oh, well, I know how to do that. Now I'm never going to do that again. I don't need to. I'm not moving on from that. No, you move on from that and you become a better carpenter, but you still have to know those foundational skills.
So you know how you were talking about how it's like theory until you practice
Put it into practice.
I haven't really gotten a whole lot of chances to practice it yet. I'm still learning about psychology. I'm not at the point where I'm
I disagree.
Well, what I mean is that I haven't graduated and now I'm licensed to practice and I've actually met with people and applied these theories, right?
But you have. You've applied them with your own children. You've applied them with me. You've applied them with yourself.
Well, if you're responding to me trying to practice some of the things that I've learned, especially when I took a counseling skills class, you're right. I am trying them out to make sure that I understand them, for one. Mm-hmm. And that, how can I teach someone else to do them if I don't know how to?
Exactly.
So
exactly.
I've got to be able to apply them a little bit in my own life.
But they're applicable skills.
Yeah, that's true. I guess you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw you use some today.
Well, yeah, I tried. I feel like I kind of tried and failed, but I guess I tried. Yeah.
I think I've seen you do it with the kids multiple times. Whether or not you realize it or not.
Interesting. I'm like, do I?
Yeah. The way you interact with them, the way, like with Tom, for instance, like the way you, like when it's time to brush his teeth or it's time to get ready for bed, instead of just being like, well, I told you to do that and getting angry at him when he didn't do it the first time. It's like, what do we do every night, Tom? Instead of like it's not a reactionary thing. It's more of just like a questionnaire, like not a questionnaire, but more of like, instead of getting upset because you had to ask him 3 times, you start flipping it more onto him.
Yeah, trying to give him that responsibility of remembering, because if I'm not there one night, I want him to be able to remember, what's my checklist. Yeah, I guess. Thank you. That's humbling. I'm definitely trying to put into practice what I'm learning into my own life. Because, we're all still learning. I've been a parent for 17 years and I still feel like I'm learning.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think if you were to quit learning in regards to parenting or in regards to, anything important, I don't know. I think that would probably be detrimental.
Yeah, I think we always need to be learning because things change.
Mm-hmm. Things change, people change, you grow, you learn, you touch the stove and it's hot and you burn yourself. You learn that it,
Maybe I shouldn't do that.
Exactly. It's good times.
Yeah, that's true. I agree with you. We always need to be learning something.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I am sweating. Give me some of that drink there, would you?
You got it. Yeah, I thought I was the only one. I'm glad to hear that I'm not. Yeah, it is warm. Quite warm.
It's quite
very
warm
toasty. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like the temperature in here really distinguishes what it's like outside, because normally, I think we talked about it on the last episode, this is the cool spot to come. The garage usually maintains cool, the cool temperature. So you can always tell if it's triple digits, because if you come in here and it's warm or uncomfortable,
you feel it.
You definitely feel it. Yeah.
There's no wasps this time around, though.
I am so thankful for no wasps. Although, honestly, I think they've just moved to another area of the house because we were taking out the trash cans the other day and they were like coming after us.
Really?
Yeah. Or there was something in the trash that they were.
Quite possibly.
Yeah. But they haven't really been hitting us as hard as we walk. When we walk out our back door to come to the shop, that's where they are. And in here, usually. Mm-hmm. But they've moved on.
Thankfully.
To the trash cans.
Thankfully.
Which is only a problem once a week. So that's fine. For me, anyway. I make the boys take the trash out.
That's good.
Yep.
That's good. It's interesting. The foundational things, the fundamental stuff. I always find myself going back to that when I get a little off track. And to be in the middle of still learning those, is it a little frustrating?
Like, are you talking about martial arts or school?
School.
Yeah, for school, yes. I definitely feel like...
Because some concepts you grasp. I definitely feel like
I'm still learning. And I think I'm going to feel like that for a long time, which is good, but also hard. And sometimes very, very, I don't know if frustrating is the right word, but humbling, I guess. Sometimes you think you got it and then you get a new assignment and you're like, I'm not even sure what angle to approach this from. So it's humbling. And I definitely feel like I'm still in the beginning of all the things that I need to know, even though if I had done my electives and followed that correct plan or path and not kind of jumped to one school to the next to back, I would be graduating after these 2 classes. But even with all that I've learned, and I do feel like I've learned so much, I feel like I still have a lot more to learn and to practice.
Yeah.
So it can be frustrating, but it's also good because I feel like learning the fundamentals is, like you said, maybe the most important part of what you need to learn.
Well, I would argue, yes, that you have to. Because if you think of the fundamentals as a foundation to a house, you want a strong foundation. Exactly. Otherwise, your house isn't going to be stable.
Yeah.
And if your house is not stable, you're going to be working on your house a lot.
Right.
And you won't progress like you would like to. Right? You'll never get to work on the yard. Or you'll never get to put the pool in the backyard because you're still worrying about the structure that you live in. And I think you always end up going back to those foundational skills.
I agree.
Even an expert, even a master, whatever, is still going to go back to those foundational skills time and time again.
Yeah. I think that's what's so hard about, like, if we skip ahead, then we have to go back and relearn some things. Like for me, for instance, I took a big break from school. I think I stopped college when our second child was 2. I remember doing some classes when they were at swimming lessons at night. So I know I was going at that point still.
Oh, I don't recall.
But I know I quit well before we had Thomas, who was our youngest. So I want to say it's been at least 10 years since I've gone to college, prior to going back this time. So I know I've forgotten things. That's probably the most frustrating. As I took a math class last term and it was great and it was really organized and thank goodness it was. But I kind of had to like go get a statistics book from the library to teach myself the basic statistics so that when they were talking about a method or a term that I didn't recognize, I'd have to go back and teach myself what that meant to then just be able to do the lesson I was supposed to do. So
yeah, last semester you were very stressed.
It was really hard.
Which understandably so.
It was great, but it really challenged me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But on the flip side of that, you strengthened your foundation.
And definitely my math skills.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. What else? Anything else you want to talk about today?
No, I was just thinking like math would be a good one to apply to fundamentals because like if you don't know.
That's actually a really good idea. Yeah.
I was just thinking that. I don't have any further elaboration on that. I was just like, that's a good example.
How could you learn the concept of multiplication if you don't know the fundamentals of basic addition?
Yeah, or even division.
Division and subtraction and all of those kinds of things.
Exactly.
They all build off each other. You couldn't expect to learn like calculus if you didn't know those fundamentals of algebra.
Right.
I mean, I guess you could, but they're abstract concepts in relation.
You would be like me going back to learning.
Yeah.
Very true.
Very true. That's actually a pretty good analogy. I like that.
Yeah, I just thought about that when we were talking about math. I was like, that's a good foundational.
I might use that one.
You should.
In class next.
That's a good one.
Yeah. Well, I'm pretty sweaty.
Oh, I'm so sweaty.
Okay, good.
Yep, it's very hot out here.
We need to either do this much later at night or earlier in the morning.
Agreed.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll wake you up at 4 next time.
My vote is that we do it like after dinner.
We can't do that. It's too late for Mark then. Yeah, our good friend, editor Mark.
4 a.m. it is then.
Yeah. Friends, thank you for listening to us. Thank you for being part of our show. We appreciate each and every one of you. You so desire, we have a store on our website, theformlesspod.com, where you can find snazzy hats like the one I'm wearing, t-shirts, sweaters, banners, stickers, tote bags, gym bags, all sorts of fun, good stuff. We also are on the Instagram and Facebook and our YouTube channel. I try to post a couple of things a week on there. We have our entire episode of the podcast plus shorts and little things like that. Trying to add more and more, but it's coming along slowly but surely. But be sure to get on there and follow for more updates. I think that's it. I hope you all have a wonderful evening and take care. See you next time.